Eric.
Yeah, how about you?
Good, good. What's up?
Okay. With the video at least.
Yeah. Sufyan, I had mentioned Eric to you, but he's a friend I've worked with in a prior life who we reconnected a little while ago, and maybe a good fit for US Oracle.
Awesome.
Hey,
Welcome,
nice to meet you.
welcome.
Thanks.
Hi, all.
Andrea, what's up?
Chief. You're in a fancy place. Where are you? It's the house?
Finally home, yeah.
Are you remodeling?
No, thank you. Had enough of that.
Yeah.
Since I killed the office, so now it's for rent. So I need a gap from renovation for at least five years. Next one is in 5 years.
We got a bunch of I actually pinged pretty much everyone, Borish, Utku, Deba. It's so we need to just figure out, we just randomly picked this time. It's I made an assumption that it's actually is good, but we'll figure out if we need to make any adjustment, because they wanted to participate but they couldn't. So we have like at 10, 12 people that they're in kind of limbo. Tracy, how you doing?
Hi, all good here. Excited to hear the latest information about Elephant Protocol.
Awesome.
Nice to see you, Tracy.
Hi.
Perfect. Are you still smoking that thing?
Always.
You haven't evolved to something more advanced?
You gotta die from something.
Yeah. Just wait a couple more minutes. We have 8 people. They can't join, and then a bunch of tentatives, and then a bunch of them that.
It would be nice to see kind of demo. And the second topic that kind of crossed my mind is related to data itself. So I can see the value overall, of course, that's why I joined. But the thing is, it's thinking about kind of the value proposition for persona that wants to use it is it bumps me in a way that it looks like we haven't resolved the initial problem that we were facing during the staircase era. So how to structure the data in a way that in the long run, let's say, it adds up to the value. You said you can scale it to IoT to other services, but the core value, why would someone exchange the token for the information? So the minimum data set in which you define a value of the information. So that I see that as a basic problem. Hope you can kind of share a little bit thought on that.
So well, let's get started. Just kind of reiterate some of these concepts. So number one, basic principle of blockchain. Number one is data is free, information is free. Where you start basically paying for information is when you're trying to change information, not to get information. The current paradigm in a centralized model is exactly the opposite. Is MLS, everybody else, you don't have access to data unless you participate in the ecosystem. And the problem that is actually decentralized model present itself is not only is basically access and paying for the information, it creates a closed system that ultimately nobody can compete for providing services. And that's how we got to where we got from a real estate perspective. Data is centralized by the MLS, is not open. It's only open to the real estate agent. Real estate agents, they're part of another centralized system called the NAR that they basically control the pricing. So as a result, the innovation has gone to zero. Price and actually efficiency has gone backwards because of these control things. So the core value proposition is, if the data is available for free, everybody's incentives is basically now leverage this data to be able to do what they do best. Real estate, to sell the mortgage, to do mortgage, basically the gaps to create cool applications on top of it, which currently doesn't exist. Even the innovation that we saw with Zillow was a little bit of a rigged paradigm, because there is no other actually application has access to the aggregated MLSs. No one, unless you're a real estate agent. So Zillow, with actually paying millions and millions of dollars and just being at the right time, they got access. So the only cool innovation that we saw in real estate that basically happens is now an app that I can look for the properties, except basically the pictures that you get out of the MLS, but nothing happened to the price. So going back to your question, accessing the data is for free. When this data is on the blockchain and actually the oracles they put it, everybody can go and just start querying that from the graph, which is basically is a construct of the blockchain, and they can look at the data. The only time they're gonna actually need to interact, which is change basically ownership of the property, put a request to show the property, put the request to actually put an offer. Those are updates that happen to the blockchain that now they have to pay gas. And that gas, it's something that ultimately is going to be distributed mainly towards the people that they did the initial putting the data and make it accessible for free. So that is how the economical model it works, which is exactly opposite of the current process. The current process, nobody is actually can put the data. Even the data is actually 60-70% of the data is available to public. You can just go to the counties and get the information. You still can't access it through the MLS, even though it's actually public information. And number two is basically you're not controlled, very similar to blockchain, that when you're updating the data, you'll have to pay fees. They say you want to use that, you need to basically abide by my rules, which is you need to have a contract, you need to have a payment to the seller and buyer, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of from an economical model. And as a result of that, you see other markets, rental markets, it doesn't apply the same thing, especially short-term rental. Where is the information is coming for Airbnb?
You put it as an user who wants to kind of.
Even though the information is already there. So what they've done, Airbnb says, I'm not going to play that game, but I'm going to actually create a system that everybody puts their data in. And that way I lateralize, which has a second problem, which is what we are trying to actually solve. It's a massive waste to basically continuously manage and maintain this data while it exists, perfectly exists. Every county has these information and it's the ground truth. If it's there, it's the truth. It doesn't require for me to go and actually type in what is the square footage of my property, how many bedrooms it has, when was the last time it was sold, what is the type of the roof, what is the type of the... These are the actually information that exists, that even the Airbnb solving this problem, it didn't solve the waste problem, which is basically now it said, screw you, you're the owner, just go type in these information. Accurate, inaccurate, whatever it is, that's part of it. And that extended itself even to the pictures, that as a result, because of this waste factor, a property over the course of 15 years is sold 2-3 times. Every time you have to go get new fresh pictures, because the pictures that it was taken, again, it's not openly available, that even if you want to pay for it, even if you want to say, I want the same pictures. You don't know who took these pictures. You don't know where these pictures are. You can't even advertise as someone who's done an amazing job taking a picture. So this solved that problem, which basically does two things. Having access to the data is free. The data can actually be reusable. And number three, the true sources of data is actually being maintained. And we are not allowing all the participants, depends on the solution, go and just be forced to put the information. And all of these things together, we believe that it allows to start breaking the current cost structure in the platform, that all the participants now they can innovate and they can actually have competitive pricing because this waste is removed, and now individuals get paid for everything that is valued. Doing an open house and selling and actually convincing people that they come see the house and just kind of make them feel good and ultimately close an $8 million property, that's a very valuable work. Not everybody can actually sweet talk someone to buy an $8 million property. And that value, it is not 6% of the value of the property. It's basically, it depends on how good you are and what skills you have and the price that you want to charge anyone. And this is basically the value prop. So the original problem that we said we struggle, the original problem that we had is we were trying to basically bring new system into a system that is locked by definition and control. So as a result, even if you bring efficiency, there is zero incentives and zero actually force for the real estate agent to just say, well, the system is a lot better. I'm going to charge less because it's actually, I'm a good person. By unblocking that, you're reversing the problem into something that allows for that level of competition.
In the simple arbitrages, because of the centralization and because of the licensing, someone like a real estate agent effectively charges like $1,000 an hour, like they're a lawyer, right? And all they're doing is basically manual data entry for the most part. So if you take the portion of their time that is just re-entering the same data, go to the county website, type it in, all this, they hide behind the license, but it's really data entry. And the consumer is paying probably $20,000 for pure data entry. So the arbitrage is to the consumer, instead of paying 20 grand for data entry, pay 20 bucks to an Oracle. You guys as Oracles can do, hundreds or thousands or millions of properties that every time they transact, you get 20 bucks. So we've targeted so that you can make 200 bucks an hour effectively for how you think about this, or basically the effort that it will take to maintain these records. So you sort of have this income stream that's like a business. Consumer saves an order of magnitude or two, and then you have this asset. So the part of the use of kind of solving the data problem is just it's the compelling economics that we'll bring, and we can go into. And we have a good summary table that we'll present next week or next session, which is just for every dollar the consumer pays, where does it go before and after? And you see how we can save the consumer money and then still have the oracles make effectively like a great income. Okay, so why don't we, Sufi, back to you, and let's get into the chart.
Awesome. Okay, so today I wanted to do two things. Number one is kind of a little bit deeper into the technicality of the process. Start talking about a little bit on the economics related to the Oracle, but more importantly, what is it that actually someone has to do to basically to participate. So very quickly, and I'm gonna actually kind of talk about the economics when we go through. This process is making a series of assumptions, and there's actually some roles that we need to basically consider. Number one is the role of the DAO, which basically is the foundation. By definition, you guys know, blockchain doesn't belong to anyone. It's not something that is actually it's controlled. There's no ownership. Is owned by basically the token holders. but there is a concept of foundation that allows to be able to create some governance to the future changes to the protocol and the decisions that actually ultimately impact all the token holders. So that's actually the DAO. There is two different data structure that exists, is the data that is on the chain and the data that is off chain, but it's actually still correlated. And the data off chain is the IPFS. And then ultimately the last piece is basically all the smart contract. So really what we are doing as the initial foundation, we are creating a set of smart contract that ultimately allows for the orchestration, this entire network. The first set of a smart contract, which we are focusing on, is the smart contract that govern the data be collected, validated, and put on the network. There are many groups of data, but the first group of data that we are actually focusing on are the groups of data that exist on the county's website. It's basically information about the location, address, zoning, geographic location, is about information about the layout and the type of the property that we have, square footage, number of bedrooms, size of the bedroom, so on and so forth. It's information about the structure of the property, which is like, it's actually, is it a brick home? Is it concrete? Is it wood? And things like that. And then information about what I call it the valuation of the property, not about what is it that is for sale, but looking at the value of the property as it changed into this to this moment. And there are two things that generates the value. Number one is the taxes, which with the assessment that happens. The other one is when the process is sold. So these are the groups of data. There are many additional groups of data that we're gonna talk about that we need to put in, which is basically for sale information, for rent information, but these are the groups. So ultimately, the job of the Oracle is to go for every address to the county and be able to bring these information, normalize this data to a standard that can be compared with 3 other oracles. And ultimately, if they agree that this data is matching, that data gets to the platform and ultimately is going to be minted as an NFT, which primarily the parcel identifier and the address is what's on the chain, and all the metadata that we talked about is off the chain. And that is the smart contracts that we are releasing. And next week, the first thing that we're going to give the team is a CLI that allows you guys to basically, after you pull the data, be able to run the CLI, bring that data to the IPFS, make sure that you reach consensus with other oracles, and then ultimately get minted. And when the data is minted, and I'm going to talk about this, basically the AI agent, you receive a token. This token is your right to continuously update this data. Obviously, there is, based on the smart contract, there are certain things that you need to abide by, because if Sufi as another oracle comes in and basically have an updated information and get consensus, you lose the ownership of that token. And that token is extremely important. Why? Is because it's your right to collect the gas. This is where the money making machine starts to work. So when you get that token and you maintain that real estate of that data, what's going to happen when in the future that data gets updated, which means people transact with that data, we have created, and that's the second smart contract, we have created allocation that the network is collect in a form of gas, and that will be distributed. And that is something that basically I send the calculation to you guys. The way we are calculating the gas, we are making some assumption. 150 million properties in US, I'm not talking about, there was a separate calculation that they're going to talk about globally, because the intent of this is not just to do US, it's actually everywhere else. So 150 million property, and then every basically Oracle, our assumption is they do this part-time, but they're going to generate actually enough revenue or enough money from the gas that it feels like a very, very good full-time job. So we made an assumption that every Oracle is gonna, on average, is after all the properties is on the network and all the transactions going through, generates around $200,000 annually to be able to basically collect as gas. Those numbers is making an assumption that basically evenly this 150 million divided with over 1,000 oracles. But if someone is a super oracle and just be able to actually get more token, which means you have the right to collect gas for many properties, well, you can make more money. So that's an important actually fact, and that's why one of the things to consider is this notion of AI agent tools. We are in the process of creating and releasing an AI agent tool that ultimately make this Oracle job a lot easier, right? Because what is the work? The work is for you to basically manage and maintain some level of actually triggers on these websites that they have the information, continuously scrape the information that is changed, take that data, convert it to actually the blockchain meta model that we have, and basically put it for the consensus that exists. And these are basically activities that an AI agent can do very, very effectively. An Oracle can be someone that basically can only manage the error handling aspect of it. So if you guys know how to create AI agents, that is great. If not, we are creating and open sourcing the AI agent that you can actually take advantage. The second part of that is extremely important, you guys see that to reach consensus, you need 3 oracles. So one thing that you need to do that you can accelerate, because that's probably going to be the most time consuming, or the wait time, is to find the second and the third oracle that not you find, but the smart contract finds. So if you're already part of an actually group, like if the split become actually a community of oracles, and 3 of you guys to just say, okay, I'll be A, you'll be B and C, and just basically do that, a lot faster you can achieve that. So don't think basically, I'm going to do this. The more you basically convince others to come in and just complete your actually the 3 oracles, a lot faster you're going to be able to mint these tokens. And as a result, you'll be able to actually take more and more coverage of data. So that's an important thing. So especially the teams, because you're geographically divided, this is something that you guys can do with the local. Mahout and Andrea, you guys actually in Qatar, you guys can basically be one group and just start chipping away and just put this data. And then if you do it through the agents, you don't really do anything. It's just basically you're waiting for basically the data gets updated. And if you have time, you can just go conquer more and more counties and actually information, or countries, to put the data on the chain to be able to get your footprint and ultimately allocation of future gas to you higher and higher. So that's actually that is important. And then the next part of this, and I'm going to talk about it, is the role of a data provider. So what is the role of data provider after this actually minting is done? Let me take a quick pause and just basically explain one thing, because from a technical point of view, it is important. The DAO already has established on the network, by the time you guys gonna actually come in and start doing your minting, the inventory of these properties. Every single property has a parcel identifier, and every single property has an address that is normalized. With actually the caveat that in certain situation, the oracles needs to validate the address and make sure that the correct address is represented. And these are the scenarios that actually the buildings and multiple actually parcels is associated to one actually geographic area. But as an example, what we are releasing on actually early next week is all the parcel IDs and basically the readiness of these parcel IDs that they're in the state of California. That is ready to be minted, right? That means you have all the addresses from the chain. You can figure out which counties these are, and you can start doing your data validation and the correction and start running the CLI. So that is, from a timeline perspective, that is important to basically to consider, because as soon as basically California is ready early next week, you guys should be ready to be able to take, if you want to participate, because that way you are going to get the allocations very, very fast. And then as we are making actually progress, we will prioritize basically other states, and eventually we'll open that up when there is no prioritization, that you can now select not only places in the United States, but places in actually in your region, and just globally put this on the platform. The data providers are the additional groups of data. So there are data on the network that it does not have a ground truth, right? Is not counting. One of those data types is photographers, right? Is a data provider. It's the photos of the property. These photos belongs to individuals that we are creating an incentive model for them to be able to participate. We just signed up a handful of photographers. We are currently, Aya is working on that. We are taking down 10,000 properties and their photos that is in Florida. And we are putting that on the chain. What that does is now the data provider has their information on the chain, and they can actually collect fees when that data is being unblocked as part of the process. This concept exists to other data. If you are a data scientist and you can go through and look at the history of all the properties that is on the chain and all the sale activity, and come up with the most sophisticated estimation of how much the property worth, like the Zestimate that is on Zillow. You can create an algorithm. Your job can be a data provider and basically put your data on the network and just make it available for usage and collect money associated with that. And there are many permutation of this data. So there is a lot of advanced GIS, basically data provider work that we can do. Do you guys know what GIS is? Which is basically geographical information. We want systematically go calculate things like proximity to a beach, walking distance to water, right? There's a lot of value exists in the data that is like that. Imagine you can systematically search to just say, show me all the properties, or tell me what's on the network that it's basically 3 steps from the most famous beach in Split, right? And you get a list of actually properties. And that's something that is validated and systematically exists. That's data that is part of that. Deriving AI information from the photos. That's another piece of data providers. We've done that. We are basically going to do it with these 10,000 photos or the properties that we're going to put in. But this is extremely powerful. Imagine an AI goes and tag up to 500 data elements per photo. Imagine you can search blockchain with phrases like, I'm looking for a property that the island in the kitchen is blue. And globally, it can actually bring that information in. Things that they're as detailed that it's never been available for actually the search. Those are all in this data provider category that they have the ability, now that the data is open up, they can run algorithms, they can run AI bots, they can do whatever they want and just put the information on the on the chain. And it's going to be different than actually the Oracle. Oracle is easier, and it's a subset of data, and basically you maintain the ownership of that data block, and the only thing you have to do, you have to make sure that this data gets updated, and you sit for the data to be utilized and transacted, and just basically collect gas associated to that. So this is kind of basically at a high level a structure of what's the phase one of the process works. As I mentioned, our goal is to provide you guys a couple of things early next week. Basically, we call it the Elephant CLI, which is basically a code that allows you to run against the data that you brought from the counties. We're gonna provide a list of parcel identifier in California that you guys can go and start pulling the information. And this will be ready to be minted. If there are 3 of you guys in, just go get the data, pull in. You know, some of the counties, they have millions. If you guys pick up LA County and you just basically do that, the amount of effort that it does to do LA County is going to be very similar to some, you know, small county, because they're just the website and the computer doing the work, but you end up with 5 million properties that is going to come down. So as a result, the probability and the coverage of the gas is massive. So those are the things that when you actually interact with the blockchain, you need to think about that. First, let me just go somewhere that with one script, I ultimately gonna hit you know, millions of record versus, you know, 100,000. That's basically that's something to consider. And you have from now until early next week to figure out your buddy Oracle to be able to start doing the work. If you do that as early as mid next week, you can actually have data on the chain with some allocation of ownership to the updates, and then this process continues. The one thing for you guys to be aware of, there is an incentive in addition to the gas for the initial data that you put in. As the first oracles, you basically are incented to go, and you are getting, in addition to these basically the SVT tokens, you're gonna get the currency of the platform. So the platform or the protocol name is Elephant. We are issuing actually a token called the Mahout, very similar to ETH, very similar to basically the other tokens that it exists. And that's something that is not actually an NFT token or SVT token. That's a value token. So for those initial basically oracles that they go and just put this data in for the first time, not only they get this future basically gas allocated to them, they receive Mahout tokens. The only thing around the Mahout tokens, and that's why we haven't released that to the people that we don't know yet, by the end of May, we are basically done all the legal work, because it operates like money. You just need to evaluate it and make sure that it's actually everything is in place before you just issue that. We will be in a position to basically to start issuing that. So if you have put transactions on the blockchain and you receive that, we have a mechanism that retroactively, when the tokens are actually allocated, it goes back and you get the Mahout token as well. So eventually, not only you have the SVT token that allows you to be able to update the data and continuously claim the ownership towards the future gas, you have the ability to basically receive these tokens, and that token is weighted in a way that, again, if you are the initial set of oracles and you're putting the data on the network as basically the second 10 million and the third 10 million, you will receive higher because it's weighted based on the population on the network. And if you are actually decide to participate later on, the incentives it would be lower. It doesn't change what the gas is, but this Mahout token that you're receiving, it's going to be different. So the important part of this is, if this is something that you like, if this is something that you want to participate, there is a first mover advantage that you guys need to take advantage of it. That's there's no point of being second. It's actually in this because, well, yeah, you get less. You put the same amount of effort, but you just basically do not get the Mahout token. So if this is truly something that you want to do and you have the time to do, and just you have the basically desire, make sure that do the legwork of finding your other oracle that you want to collaborate with to be able to reach consensus. So you guys do it in a coordinated fashion, that if you're picking up LA County, the other two pick LA County, because that way you can just reach consensus. If you basically have correct data and just put it on the network, versus you do all the work and wait for another actually oracle to show up to reach consensus. So that coordination, it's something that you guys need to think about and basically be very, very careful, because that is speed matters in this case, that not only your speed but your fellow actually oracle, because all three needs to basically reach consensus for you to start getting both the future Mahout tokens and the immediate SPT token.
Can you explain the ownership switch, for example, like make it tangible from the data perspective? So, from my understanding, let's say a single property, I'm combined with Adam and with Mladen, for example, we are the oracle. So we sync the same geolocation house with the same address. So we pull the data, each one, we put it on the network, and initially, like, it's confirmed, the token is there. We are kind of, there's a share ownership of that token between three of us.
Yeah, so it basically, ultimately you're getting, and these are some of the things you see inside the CLI, that these tokens, they might be grouped, so 3 individual tokens, but it's one token that is associated to actually the NFT, which is basically, it's the actual tangible property. So then the allocation of gas is going to be to the parent or the group NFT, and as a result, the gas will be divided by 3 all the time.
Okay, so
but the result of that is, when you go through this process, you need to specify your wallet. So when the consensus is reached and the platform created the token in your wallet, you just basically get your token. And then when the gas is generated in the future, you just show up in the morning, look at your wallet, and just basically you have received gas. Very similar to the paychecks that the movie stars they get. It's like a copyright, there's a royalty, and it's just basically coming to you. And the platform, a smart contract kind of manages this, and that is what we are basically coding right now as we speak.
I got the definition, it's clear. So let's, me with my team, with Adam and Mladen, we hit the first one, okay?
Yeah.
So let's say you bring the second team, Sufi, with 4 other guys. So you have 4 oracles. You go to the same house, same location, you pull the data. Now it's being synchronized.
Okay, just hold on. You should not. So number one, as Oracle, the first thing that you need to do, you need to go on the chain to just say, am I bringing parcel ID that doesn't belong? Because if you are coming and you're bringing and you reach the same data, is not gonna actually give that token to them anymore, because you owned it. The only way you're gonna lose the ownership is if you do this, don't do anything, data gets updated, the team 2 go and actually pull the data, so now they have a better data that is fresh, that is different than your data, and they just basically come and put that forces you out. So when you do this with the team, as long as you basically put the data, you put your mechanism in place that you, on an ongoing basis, you go and actually get the data and put it there, the next bunch of oracles that they're coming in, LA County, they look on the chain to just say LA County already minted. There's no point of me doing that, because I can do all the work, but the tokens that are in your wallet, they're not gonna get anything. The smart contract, it's thank you, but just like it's the same information. There's already ownership associated to that. We don't need the data. It just sits there and just basically never do anything. So it's basically, that's why at the beginning you see here that we have some level of prioritization and a DAO, which basically you can in the CLI query what's on the data to just say, okay, for me, the best course of action is to start doing Chicago, right? Because nobody has Chicago. It's a massive actually data, and in the prioritization, it's ranked as the highest because the DAO indicated that. So when something is minted and is yours, it is yours, and nobody can touch it unless you screw up.
Got it. It's more like what I'm thinking of. I will get the ban from their system. I will kind of firewall for sure, because I want to do brute data attack on the data sources kind of continuously in order to pull the data, kind of to have the latest data. So like me as an Oracle, imagine like 10,000 oracles, everybody's going to kind of run for the data update. So we are going to brute force whatever from the data perspective we can pull. Yeah.
And there are a couple of, and these are the things that we're going to evolve. I think if you have 10,000 oracles, we were just basically, you're probably at that point is a multimillionaire. We all are, but we'll get to that. But when we reach that, we are trying to in the smart contract, and these are the things that DAO going to come in. As an example, the staking matters, the original ownership matters. So we don't want to make that just purely based on whoever showed up next gonna get it. We create grace period. We're creating actually some stages that if the system in place and it's just a matter of someone who wants to kind of sneak in, and you have a reputation, you have actually had the data, will create some advantage for those ones that they have basically stake already for those properties, and the proof of stakes and some of the concept will be utilized. Right now, we don't have any problem because it's just actually is us. And basically, our intent is to make sure that we get the most coverage, but the points that we are making, it's actually is valid, and we need to make sure that as part of the smart contracts, we put both protection, but at the same time, basically incentives for if you screw up and just basically you decide not to do this anymore, we don't want the protocol to go to basically to shit. And if someone else is willing to do that, it should make sure that the data is actually valid and getting updated. So those are the things that is going to come into play a little bit further down the road as we need to make these smart contracts really sophisticated. But initially, right now, they're more properties than oracles we have. So it's a little bit relaxed and loose.
Thanks, got it now.
Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So my recommendation for you guys is, if you're interested, couple of things I would do, right? Number one, very quickly encourage whoever you want me to on your team, right? And pick that amongst yourself, figure out so you're ready. Number two, I will publish the list of counties in California in the next couple of days for you to start basically evaluating their websites, what the script that you need to put in place, and so on and so forth. So you'll have that in place, a little bit of an assessment. And the third is basically kind of understand the data structures that those websites have, plus the data, and you guys are familiar with the data. The data is our lexicon in a sense for those groupings. So there is a level of transformation that needs to happen between the data. Those are the things that actually you need to do, right? Has nothing to do with the CLI. Those are the scripts that you can just put in place. You can spend the weekend, go write up the script, figure out how to actually traverse throughout all the parcel IDs in the LA County. Let's say it's the first one that you do. Pull down the data in the raw format, put it wherever the hell you want. basically start thinking about how you want to map that and transform it and write the mapping associated to that to the lexicon, and that's something that I would publish the definition. When you have that and the data is transformed, let's say you have a bunch of JSONs in S3 in your account. When the CLI is given to you, all you need to do is just basically point this to the data that you already transformed, each and every single one of you, after you've actually done the work, and push the button. It goes, you get something back from the network to just say, these are the discrepancies. You fix the discrepancies, you just actually adjust the mapping, you create, version 2, version 3, until you reach the consensus, and that's basically put that in the network. So if this work is done, you'll be able to ultimately, by middle of next week, end of next week, just basically take down 2-3 counties in California. And if that works, then you can just basically go to the rest of them. And, in the matter of, a week or two, you can own the entire California as an oracle with minimum amount of work that actually it says. It's just, hours and days, not months. And just basically put that on the network. Then think about how do you create crawlers, very similar like a SEO indexing, the way Google does, that just basically figure out the update to these properties, and just continuously update it. And that's it. Make sense?
Yeah. You need to provide kind of example, the CLIs.
Yeah.
For us to check it out, as you said in the link store. It's a classic scraper, like just kind of data acquisition module that you need to build and just push it in wherever it needs to be pushed. So from the tech perspective, nothing complicated.
No, it's not. And you'll have that, and then you'll wait for basically, if you have time, you can just continue and basically be the dominant oracle, because this is actually, you see value, or you just use that as an insurance. So just say, I'm not going to be the one that doesn't have it, and just I'll do 3 counties and just basically leave that and just wait for it. This is a very similar progress of the early participants in the Bitcoin, and they decided to actually mine, just bring it down. At that point, you're going to do anything with it, just didn't have any value, but nothing to explain right now. It's actually $104,000 per Bitcoin. So that's last time we talked about this story of a guy that basically spent a lot of time and just basically bought 2 pizza on the forum for 10,000 Bitcoin. So we might be you might be that oracle, but hopefully we're smart enough not to buy pizza with those SPTs and just wait for it, because this is actually Oracle network, it's one of those things that is going to actually, it scales, right? It's not about me individually or you individually. This is something that is actually, if everybody participate, in a matter of weeks, you can just take down the entire United States, and then eventually go to Croatia and Europe and just so on and so forth, and very quickly globally have the data. On the other hand, what we are doing at Staircase is we are taking all the other successful applications that we created and everything else, and we will be basically the first ones transact on that. We have a real estate agent license. We have real estate that starting next week, they're going to actually do real estate work on the chain. Instead of the 6%, we are basically getting them to basically show houses for $100 and $50 and do the contract and everything else. We have the mortgage license, so we start doing the pre-approval that we put on the chain. We are getting insurance license. We are bringing it on the chain. So we are trying, on the other hand, not only do the Oracle, but just basically create incentives to just showcase how applications and licenses operate on the platform. And that will trigger the demand side of it. The supply, we are talking about it, but the demand, we have plan and execution associated to that. So if these two things come together, then we have an Uber phenomenon. That basically first we're saturating with the supply because the timing is right, and then just the demand that it comes back and just attach itself to the process.
Hopefully, yes.
It will work.
Like I cannot say for anything in like these days that it's going to work, but like it's something that we should try for sure.
It is immortal. The problem is that the difference between other things and this one is it's immortal. You know, when this thing goes to the network and these smart contracts exist, it's beyond me, you, and this group's actually effort.
No, it's for sure. It's more
And
like
if it has
community,
a
how to build
value
the community.
equation, it basically will catch on.
I mean, if it goes viral, that like you as an owner, if you are the one who's kind of adding the data, and for example, like as you stated, for example, pictures, like from the pictures AI can analyze, you can do better estimation on the property, kind of from the value perspective. Meaning, let's say, and using the same technology or kind of the same system, same platform, you can even sell the house. For example, as you said, like when we were doing the analysis, 10K, 20K, I don't know how is the percentage of the broker. Let's say you cut to 10%, and you say if you kind of add this kind of data to the network, you will kind of reduce the total amount of the broker fee to 95% or something like that. So kind of it can go viral. There is from the marketing perspective, there is a value proposition there, because like without the owners, the kind of the scaling.
No, but it's the other way around. This system does exist. It's called sell by owner. It exists. You can just go put your property and don't pay anything. But it didn't work. It didn't work. Like every single thing that we are trying to do, it's actually on its own didn't work because of the first principle that we talked about at the beginning. At the end, because this network is attached to the MLS and MLS has a scale, you know why it didn't work? Sale by owner?
No.
Because when your house is there, sell by owner next to all the other houses in Zillow, the real estate agent that needs to show the house, it says, I'm gonna tell you not to go see that house because there's no commission in it. That's why it didn't work. So that centralization of data is exactly the reason that all these actually attempts to just purely do it at the level of the applications, it never actually caught on because the system is centralized and controlled. When that value prop, it breaks because we did that. This is what we did. We just basically have license. We in the last 6 months, we have sold and bought for our customers at basically a flat fee of $999, not the 6%. 10, 11 properties. You already know that. That's what we do right now. Why it's not thousands? Even though when you go to the customers that basically say, do you want to pay 6% to these guys versus actually for $999? We get blocked, and we had to go to actually in front of the authority and the court because we did that advertisement. I was in front of the judge to explain. So that's the reality of this situation, right? So that's why all the ideas didn't work, and the solve for that, speaking of our virtues, is to basically Gordian knot the foundation of the problem, which is the centralization of data and centralization of the control. If that's removed, is on the blockchain, nobody owns this data. As an NFT owner, you can just go claim your property. And all the old pictures, they're there. I would go get my property and claim it. I spend as an investor many hours to go find some pictures to actually put in because the last person didn't even know who took the pictures. If you put it on the platform, it's open, and I have to actually spend $100 to be able to get the whole pictures. I'll do that. Everybody will do that. But none of those things exist because it's actually is locked. The only way you can get that is you go hire and basically a real estate agent. The real estate agent get access to the MLS. Now you can actually do all those activities. So the mafia is actually holding it, and that's why the first thing to be able to get all those ideas work is basically to invert this, to open up and decentralize, and then every single cool thing that you're saying, it will work. It doesn't even need to work with us. They're going to be many app creators that they can do that. You can create it as actually as an oracle. You can decide to just say, oh, well, I'm going to basically have this cool feature and as an app to put it on the actually network and release it to just basically a mechanism to modify pictures or create a best description of the property or and anything that you can actually think of. Any questions?
Do you want to, Sufi, do you want to send this chart out? I don't know how well people can follow on the call. Or
Yeah, I will basically, we have that and the whole description is Snap. I will send it, it is in Snap. I open it publicly and just send the information. We have that follow-up email that is going to come in, the recording and everything else like last time. I'll actually send it.
Okay.
Or just diagram in Mermaid syntax, because it looks like it was built in Mermaid.
What's that?
Or diagram in Mermaid syntax.
It is the syntax. It is in the actually in the document.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, guys, just a couple of things. Let's make sure that, you know, now the task for you guys is to just kind of bring in other oracles. This call is actually every Thursday. If the consensus of the team is to just put it at another time or anything else, I'm willing to do that. This is just randomly. You have it here. Probably there's a better time because I got, you know, 10, 12 tentative and people say not this week, next week I'll be able to join. So that's the other one, but just promote and bring the others because both you need them as actually as the oracles. And number two is basically if you become an oracle, faster we reach the critical mass is basically the benefit of all the token holders, which basically going to be this initial group. So make sure that you just do your promoting thing as well if you are actually want to be an oracle participant.
Yeah, and again, we've toggled the gas, so you guys should be making a lot of cash on transactions, not just the kind of ownership token, but we want this to be like such an obvious thing to spend time on. So that'll hopefully become clearer as you dig in, but that's the goal. Okay.
Mohammed,
Sounds good.
I will see you at the end.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hello Sophie. Hello Adam.
Bye.
Nice to see you again.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye
See
bye.
you guys.